What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is that time of the week yet again, the Sooners on SI podcast. I am Brian Chapman, per usual, hanging out here in Moore. We've got the man, the myth, the legend, 918 Hoove up in the 918. John, how are you?
Awesome, man. Beating the heat. This is podcast number 289 for the Sooners on SI podcast. So we are rolling into the big 300, and it's going to be a party. So stick with us.
And trust us, the last time we tried to count into a big podcast, it was going to be the Big 12 championship, except it was the Big 12 championship that Lincoln Riley never got to, the only one. So we won't be counting out the days and trying to figure that out. No Carson today. He is trekking across. He was in Missouri with his pops hitting up the greens. A very, very nice. Today is an off day for the team in Norman as far as just doing mental reps. Carson was just going through some mental reps today and yesterday as well. So he'll be back with us next week. Hopefully, we should be back on Wednesday, next Wednesday, unless we've got availability and all that stuff. That schedule has not hit my inbox yet. So when it does, we will get that out to the masses if we're here on either Wednesday or Thursday. During the season, it'll be Wednesdays, but it's camp. We're going all over the place. We got all that. It's camp. I've been out to camp 3 times since we last spoke. Once last Friday, then on Monday, and on Wednesday. And John, I am here to answer any and all of your questions because, as you know, individual drills is exhilarating, and I can tell you definitively a depth chart based off of purely what cornerback is going through the drill at what point, et cetera, et cetera.
We got it all figured out, don't we? Just based on the little viewing. I'll tell you this: the amount of viewing that we've gotten to watch, I should say, you and Carson have gotten to watch this year. Wow, way more than what we've had in years past under Brent Venables or Lincoln Riley, for that matter. Open practices. The first time was an hour. I think the second one was 40 minutes, and I think the third one was in excess of 40 minutes. So you guys have been busy. You've gotten some good looks. And if you want to see the videos of those, either go to my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media, or scroll down, click on the football button, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com, click on football and scroll down until you get to the watch the highlights video. Ryan did a good job with the videos this week. We got some real quarterback action on there. Some wide receivers are making some plays. So check that out because I think everybody, you look at my YouTube channel, the comments are, wow, we're getting a lot of looks at practice this year. The fans themselves are noticing more open door to the OU practices. So that's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, it's been it's not quite been like so it was 2 springs ago. Yeah, 2 springs ago that we got like an hour to an hour and a half. We actually got to stay for some team periods, some 7-on-7. That was, hey, once they got to team and 7-on-7, no one can have the cameras out, but you can observe or just take still photos if you want. This go round, let me just try a lot of individual drills and right? This is still fall camp. That's a big part of any practice, all that stuff. We've not got to see any team period, which is also like a duh. I don't know of any coach that's going to open up their practice for video cameras and stuff at team period, but on Friday, excuse me, it was Monday in my brain. Friday, the first practice, we were out there. Got to see just some no helmet, no pad, walk-through type situation stuff as Mateer and Michael Hawkins Jr. are commanding stuff. We got to see on Friday as well. The defense just go through some pretty basic shell coverage stuff. Hey, cover 2, cover 3. Where's everybody going? Where does everyone know what they're doing? Hey, you need more depth on your drop, Reggie Powers. If you don't go 2 yards farther, you're going to leave a gap. Stuff like that. That was on Friday. On Monday,
deep balls to Ben Arbuckle.
One more time.
Throwing deep balls to Ben Arbuckle.
Yeah, well, that was yesterday. That was on Wednesday. On Monday, we got the one-on-one wide receivers / tight ends, DBs, and a couple linebackers thrown in there. That was some good stuff that we can toss in there. And then we also got some inside run on Friday, which is, as you know, we've both worked a great deal in our careers with the great Sam Mays. That is the best period of all periods at practice is inside run. And then Wednesday, we got a little bit of outside. Got to see a nice toe tap catch by Jaron Kanik. Got to see, this did not make the video. Our friend Whit Neubauer may or may not have thrown a lateral behind the line of scrimmage that just like dribbled. I went ahead and said, we'll just leave that one out just for everybody. Two thumbs up to everyone. So that
They,
one
they,
did not make the
they
cut,
still
but
got the Bauer Sharp special in. Is that what you're saying?
well, it I
The
don't.
Jackson Arnold Bauer Sharp
Here's
special?
here's the thing. On Wednesday, it was basically a swing pass to a tight end, but I don't think that's by design because on Wednesday we'll talk about some injuries and availability. Oklahoma had three running backs available. Running back one, Javante Barnes. Running back two, Torrey Blaylock. Running back three, former NFL MVP, offensive MVP. Sorry, not MVP, offensive player of the year. Former NFL offensive player of the year, DeMarco Murray. That was running back three on Wednesday. I don't think Oklahoma's overly concerned about it. Jaden Ott had a shoulder injury. I don't remember if that was Monday or Tuesday. He was fully suited up, but running next to the position group, which in practice parlance means that's about as close as you can get to being cleared without actually participating in drills. If you're not, they have a big injury tent basically, and if you're under the injury tent, you're not imminently like boom, right there. They had Jade Knott, Taylor Tatum, and tight end Caden Helms all doing cardio stuff basically on the practice field, which means those guys are close. Xavier Robinson was a little nicked up too, but it's not expected that that's going to be a long term situation. Now, if we get to Monday of what would be week zero and those guys still aren't practicing, I say hit the panic button, go
Yep.
for it. But as of right now, those injuries in particular are not like a oh my God, it's happening again. 2024 is back. But yeah, because of not a ton of running backs, it would be Javante does a rep, Blaylock does a rep, and instead of DeMarco doing a rep, it was like, all right, send Jaron Kanik on a swing pass or stuff like that, just because of availability. And there was definitely miscommunication. The ball definitely rolled for a little bit, and I definitely looked at Josh Callaway and said, better keep Mateer and Hawkins healthy because that was not a good sign in outside run.
So injury wise, we've heard Deion Burks is out. A lot of players are sitting out. A lot of frontline players are sitting out, especially, I'm sorry to say, the skill position players. Are they cursed or are they cautious? Which one, Ryan?
I think we can go player to player and maybe see if they're cursed or cautious. I would say caution is the theme of camp so far for
For
me
sure.
when you look at some of the availability stuff. Because Deion Burks, for instance, on Wednesday, fully suited out in cleats, not turfs. The surest sign that you have when you walk out to practice is if they're in the turf shoes, the
Right.
turfs. Like Jaden Gibson. Jaden Gibson's in turfs. He stretches and then he walks to the injury tent. He's not close, right? That's how you know that he doesn't even have any like juice about him as he's stretching. No urgency. It's just kind of like I'm here. We're at practice. I go to the injury tent. Deion Burks is like very actively stretching, and then he's not going through the drills with the receivers, but he's being used as hey, when the quarterbacks need to do their landmark throws, throw into the back corner of the end zone, throw into the basically the goalpost, back the end zone, stuff like that. It's alternating between Deion Burks and Ben Arbuckle doing stuff like that. So I would say that is like abundance of caution
Yeah.
because if Burks was like actually not able to do anything, he would just head back under the injury tent, start to get the treatment, all that stuff. Instead, he's not getting treatment. He's out there. It's very, very similar to, I would say, and this is not an injury, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. R. Mason Thomas. On Friday, you know that R. Mason is not just the defensive end one, maybe the best, could be the best defensive player on this team, all that stuff. He would take the first rep at kind of half speed, and then he would stand off to the side and help coach the other guys. Not because he was worried about injury, but because why are you risking R. Mason Thomas in a non-padded practice? You don't. That kind of thing. And so I think you've seen a lot of that. There's been some Kendall Dolby participating on Friday. On Wednesday, I don't know if he didn't participate the whole way, but when I was standing over there, he was with the corners, but not going through the drills, helping with some technique stuff. That is out an abundance of caution to keep Kendall Dolby healthy coming into things. And I think with a lot of these guys, it's caution. For like a Grayson Halton, he has been under the injury tent. He's working past, believe it's a leg injury, like a hamstring type thing, but it's also not a situation where again, if we get to Monday of week zero and Grayson Halton's still under the tent, there might be something to it. If not, I think that there's confidence that he'll be back sooner rather than later. The new one, though, from Wednesday that I do think is notable, and I just candidly, hand up, have checked around, not been able to get anything either way, good, bad, or otherwise. PJ Adebore was under the tent on Wednesday on the stationary bike, which was a change from Monday. We were out there Monday. PJ was out there going through stuff. So I don't know if that was a tweak. I don't know if because he was out there stretching with everybody. I don't know if he just felt some tightness and wanted to go to the bike for a period to work that thing out. Sometimes you see, like if you watch our video from Wednesday and you are counting off people with the defensive tackles, so you don't see David Stone, it's because he was getting his ankle retaped when I happened to be standing over there. So those guys are moving in and out. So I would say, like, overall, the big thing is not like super duper panicked. Although, again, here it is on Thursday. I've not gotten an update either way on PJ. So we will see. The one maybe to note is Eli Bowen is still not close to like doing anything. He's in a boot. He's not under the tent, nor is he really like with Dion Burks, kind of in the mix, but not really in the mix. He's not around for that. So, again, I would say if that's still the case here in a couple weeks, keep a big eye on that. But as far as the other injuries go, Kane Helms had the soft cast on his right hand. Think that he's expected to try and roll through that. It was a shoulder for Ott, but a really, really minor shoulder thing. I don't think there's been anything like last year at this time, knock on wood, we're talking about the major Jaden Gibson knee injury. You're talking about, hey, Troy Everett is still not, he's ahead of schedule, but he's not working back in. And then, oh my gosh, Branson Hickman got banged up, stuff like that. I don't think they're to that situation here, Hoove. And I think more than anything, it is a abundance of caution on the rugby fields.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of the names because you have to be cautious with Gentry, number one, but two, if Eli is that far out or is that far away from returning, all of a sudden, then you're talking about who's getting all the reps. You can't have Gentry take too many reps. He needs reps. He needs to sharpen up. He hasn't played a lot in the last year and a half, 2 years, but since his injury in 2023, was that 23? Yeah, 2023. But then you start asking, okay, so who else can play cornerback? Well, Dolby can, but he's coming off that, fractured ankle foot. Freshman, Cortland Guillory is a guy that's getting a run at cornerback. You got Jeremiah Newcomb, who's a redshirt freshman, who's obviously not a ton of experience there. All of a sudden, you've got some cornerbacks in there that you've got to. Malik Hawkins is another one, true freshman. You've got some corners that you're running in there. If these guys that your first three guys are not healthy enough, or maybe you want to be a little more cautious with them to get them to the season, you're getting a lot of young guys, a lot of frontline reps in training camp, and that's a little bit. I would think that'd be a little bit scary in this conference.
Yeah, I think it's kind of goes back to a little bit what Brent Venables, he was asked by, I think it was Mason Young, who asked him with the new roster limitations, how does that change camp, depth, things like that? And Brent was like, for camp, it doesn't really change a lot. When you're in the camp portion, you've not split up into your scout team versus first team, second team quite yet. So usually it's just like the first three waves of guys that are getting reps, which with your being cautious with Gentry, and Gentry was going through everything when we were out there yesterday. If you're being cautious with Kendall Dolby, that means that more reps for Cortland Guillory, who sounds like he's been impressive, more reps for Newcomb. If you have no Eli Bowen, like let's just say we're playing a game today and Eli Bowen's still in the boot, I think your cornerback rotation is a healthy dose of Dolby, Gentry, Jacoby, and then Guillory and Newcomb are the guys kind of rotating in. So that's three guys with experience. One of those experienced guys, Jacoby Johnson, has a lot more size than the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Gentry's a small dude, he's just a little bit shorter. And then you've got Cortland Guillory, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Confident as all get out. He was a joy to talk to yesterday. And then Jeremiah Newcomb, which is someone that continues to come out, as well as Devon Jordan. Sorry, I forgot Devon Jordan. Devon Jordan, also a guy that he did some kick returning a year ago. Also a great guy to talk to. We talked to him on Monday. And if you missed that, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Hit us up there. Click on the football tab or head over to Hoove's YouTube page. So I think it is one of those things where if you talk about youth, it can be a little scary. I don't think it's youth like the offensive line a year ago, though,
Yeah.
where it was like, guys, I don't know if Heath Ozide or Logan Hallen's ready, but they're going to have to be ready.
Yeah.
I think that these are young guys that Jay Valai and Brent Venables are really excited about. And in a weird way, I don't think they hate that Devon Jordan, Newcomb, and Guillory are going to get a lot more reps early in camp so that they can I think this is kind of like, okay, we're going to drop you to the deep end here in the first 8 or so practices leading up to the scrimmage on Saturday. And then as you really start to ramp Gentry and Dolby and Jacoby Johnson into the season, it can kind of be we've taken stock of who can handle the stuff and who has a ways to go. So who can be in that rotation versus who might have to be a scout team or stuff like that. And then some of those guys like a Newcomb, when they broke up into some of the drills, Newcomb split time working with the Cheetahs, the DB, the kind of the safeties and the linebackers. As he was working with that on Wednesday as opposed to just the corners on Monday. So clearly, a lot of faith in him and what he can handle mentally if they're going to kind of let him split some time and work at a couple of different spots, which based off of a little bit of again, not team period stuff or anything like that, but just based off, hey, when they break up into their individual drills, who's working where and stuff like that.
Some of those young guys are going to have to grow up quickly in during the month of August is the main thing. But here's the deal: you look at Eli playing as a true freshman. I know his brother is playing here, and it has been in the Peyton has been a kind of a fixture in the secondary, so that explains a little bit of what I'm getting ready to say about Eli. He was a great freshman All-American. But if you look at the number of freshmen that are coming in, whether it's, and some of them have yet to play. I know some of them have yet, but they're getting a lot of talk. They're getting a lot of run. And we'll have to wait and see to be sure. But I just think it's a more evidence, the fact that you've got 3 or 4 freshmen defensive backs coming in who could contribute, possibly even make their way into the starting lineup like Eli did at some point. It's continuing evidence that Brent Venables' legit remake of this defense has happened. And and they're getting guys. They've got 2 5-star guys. Well, one's a 4-star, one's a 5-star that are down to OU and one other school that are going to commit here in the next few weeks. And it's just more evidence that Brent Venables has remade this defense successfully, has turned it around especially from what it was. Consider that. And then, he's been doing some of that same thing on the offense, getting some guys in that play early on in their freshman year, look like, especially in this receiver corps, look like they might be big time contributors at some point in the near future. Here in their very first August, their very first training camp, some of those receivers are making plays. So I just think I think it's more evidence of what a lot of people want to see, which is Brent Venables has things going in that correct direction. It's just going to have to avoid the injury bug like last year and win some one possession games.
I think too, it's really important. I think that like you and I covering it every day, or you covering it not on a full-time basis anymore, but you know what I mean, that we get so into the weeds with Oklahoma, and it's easy to kind of lose the forest through the trees sometimes. I think maybe the fan base gets the same way. You hear everything good or bad about Oklahoma, and you're just hearing the highlights from other programs. If you talked to every coach at SEC Media Day, this was the case for Kirby Smart to Eli Drinkwitz and Sam Pittman, all the way across the gambit in the SEC, with the NIL roster soft cap, I guess is what we'll call it, with the rev share plus NIL and what the College Sports Commission is going to allow versus what they're not going to allow, which it looks like they've relaxed it a little bit, but you still have to prove that you're providing some value as opposed to just Texas Tech writing a blank check. So wherever we land in between that, the dollars are going to be finite to a certain extent. It's still going to be a lot, but they're going to be finite, and the roster spots are going to be finite. And at a certain point, everybody right now is probably carrying more underclassmen than they're used to. And I think that's going to be the adjustment. When you talk about depth, because of the transfer portal, and this is a process that has been ongoing for 5 or 6 years, across the country, your depth is going to come from how quickly can you get the young guys ready to chip in a rotational spot. And then can you avoid the injuries to the veteran guys so that they can be rotational until they earn more? And that's, again, that's what Kirby was talking about. Kirby was talking about they've got more freshmen and sophomores than really any time at his time in Athens and at Georgia. So this is not like is Britt screwing up the roster type thing. At corner, we talked about all spring. I think everyone would have felt more comfortable if they had brought in one more veteran corner. But if Kendall Daniels and Reggie Powers are going to be Johnny Badass at Cheetah, and you can slide Kendall Dolby back over to corner, boom, there's your veteran depth at corner type thing. So I don't think that's like a panic button. And I think
Yeah.
with Brent, he's shown whether it be Jay Jackson a year ago, whether it be Kip Lewis as a redshirt freshman, whether it be Eli Bowen, that some of those young guys that Brent Middles is bringing on the defensive side of the ball, the level of play may go up and down as far as final record for Oklahoma, but usually those guys are they find a way to give them a role to contribute and be a plus to the Oklahoma defense.
A little breaking news. You guys will hear about it before we podcast this thing, but might as well throw it out here now. According to our man Parker Thune, the Sooners have landed their first commit of the 2027 cycle. South Lake Carroll offensive tackle Luke Wilson has committed to OU. So there's building on the offensive line. First commit 2027 is an O lineman. Ryan, I want to continue your theme on the last point you were making, and that is about the Brent Venables not taking questions, requesting of the media to not take questions about injuries. When we're talking about injuries, right? And Brent doing things his way. This tells me one of two things, or maybe it tells me both things. He still doesn't quite know about who's injured and how bad and when he's going to be available and when he can come back and all that. He still doesn't quite know, or perhaps there's a little bit of doesn't quite trust what the medical staff is telling him. Like last year, for instance, right? He got frustrated there. He got burned there a couple of times last year. He'd come out and said, we're looking at, he's on the right timeline, couple of weeks, we should have him back, and then he's out for the rest of the season, right? Several times that happened. So he's either a little gun shy there to stick his neck out and get those questions. He doesn't want to answer those questions because he doesn't want to come off as disingenuous or dishonest. So please don't ask me, right? Cut it off at the beginning. Number two, I mean, OU did change athletic trainers, right? So there's don't tell me that the coaching staff and everybody didn't gain some level of frustration last year. Number two, it really is truly too early to hang invest any time or emotion on who can't play, right? Who's not here, when this team's focus needs to be on the complete opposite of that. Who can play? Who is here? Good. Let's get that guy better. The other guy's hurt. He's in the tent. He's in the training room. Good. Leave him there. You get out there and you're going to get better today. And then number three, the possibility is the reason he doesn't want to take any questions about injuries. He's still a little bit paranoid and he doesn't want to give, the opening opponent any competitive disadvantage or a competitive advantage for them. Right.
Yeah.
The second week.
Yeah, I do sympathize with Brent here on this. Brent, so when we were at SEC Media Day, not at the big podium, but you have the big podium, all the OU beat reporters get to talk to Brent beforehand, where it's just OU beat reporters, which is why you might be like, why don't you guys? The podium comes up and it's it's the weird guy from Auburn who was asking about Navy, and why the hell aren't you guys Well, we asked a lot of our questions off to the side where it's just us. And when we asked,
why aren't you running the triple option more?
Yeah, you've got Hawkins and Mateer. You can anyway. When we asked about Jamani Gibson, Brent smiled and he went on this not a big tangent, but he's like, it was almost like him trying to explain himself. Like, I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm not. But setbacks can happen, and it felt like what would happen last year is on Tuesday he'd give an update. A setback would happen on Thursday in practice. We hadn't talked to him from Tuesday until Saturday. Thursday night, the availability report comes out. It shows so-and-so out. Everyone's like, what the heck? You said on Tuesday it was this or that. And Brent basically was just like, I will give the updates as they come when it comes to Jamani Gibson being full speed, stuff like that. And so I have to imagine, I'm as I understand it, a lot of this is abundance of caution stuff on some of these injuries. And so I think that instead of Brent stopping down and saying abundance of caution, blah, blah, blah on all of this, because I mean, what happens if Jade Knott, for instance, what happens if he gets one carry during the scrimmage on Saturday and re-sprains his shoulder, and then it becomes well, you said it was a 2-day thing, and I think that's a little bit of the thing in camp, because I mean, 2 Wednesdays ago when they were there, you asked about Eli Bowen. Britt Middles just flat out said Eli Bowen not ready for the start of camp type. So that is kind of the vibe I got. Is it the best just like look if you see like this happen and you just probably not, but I guess I'm just gonna take Britt at his word there because it was almost like he was trying desperately to explain to us like I'm not trying to be super evasive. I'm just trying to tell you like there's varying degrees of he's been cleared for grass work, but he's not full speed and he's not going to be doing drills for 2 weeks, but he's cleared to start doing this. It's like in the NBA when the updates you get is Isaiah Hartenstein coming off his hand has been cleared for individual workouts. He's been cleared for 2-on-2. He's been cleared for 5-on-5. College programs don't get into that level of detail, and I don't think Brent Venables has any interest in getting into that level of detail. And so I think it being week 1.5 of camp, I think he was just like, we'll get this sorted when we get closer to game week type thing.
I agree with all that. He also doesn't want to give Illinois State any competitive advantage.
Hey, Illinois State debuted at number 6 in the FCS preseason top 25. So
that's legit. That's good.
I'm here to tell you, Temple will be the worst team on the Oklahoma schedule. I'm just going to put that out there right now. Illinois State is number 11. Maybe actually Kent State. You know what? I don't think Illinois State's going to be the worst team Oklahoma plays. They're not going to be better than any team they play, Michigan or conference, but either Temple or Kent State will be worse than Illinois State. They're all going to suck. All right. Let's real quick spin it forward. On Saturday is scrimmage number 1. Brent Venables talked about that a little bit. It was a pretty long answer where basically on offense, he wants them to take care of the ball and be explosive. On defense, he wants them to force turnovers and not let the offense be explosive. That kind of stuff. I think more than anything, what you would like to see, John, and I think what Brent was trying to say at a certain point, if we give up an explosive play, he's talking about the defense, we want it to be an earned explosive play as opposed to a bust type of explosive play. I think what Brent Venables and the coaching staff would probably like to see more than anything is for this to be a healthy back and forth where it's not one side of the football just dominating everything, where it's like, okay, if we got hit on a deep shot, it's because Keontez Lewis mossed somebody, or it's because Elijah Thomas had such great body control and John Mateer dropped it right in a bucket on the sideline and he's able to catch it and go out of bounds. And it was decent coverage. You're in a good spot, but a great play. And vice versa, if there's an incompletion, instead of Mateer airmailing it or stuff like that, he wants a safety coming down and eliminating a window that you thought was there pre-snap that wasn't there, which is and no injuries, which is I think what everybody wants in any scrimmage.
The video that OU sent out late last week, I think, of Mateer scrambling to his right and then dropping a dime to Burks, who went up and just by that much, an inch or two, made the catch in traffic behind the DB for a touchdown, I think. It reminded me of the movie Elf, where Buddy is throwing those snowballs, and he's rolling out on that one, and he throws it sidearm, and hits a kid in the back, perfect, hits him in the head. There's magic going on with Mateer. Mateer's going to make some things happen that is going to frustrate, possibly even tick off, shall we say, or possibly even embarrass this defense. And I'm not suggesting he's, the next Dan Marino or anything. I'm just saying he's going to do some things that people are going to be, screaming at each other, and they're going to be like, dude, there's nothing you could do. That was just a perfect throw. That was a perfect pass in a perfect situation. I think the SEC is going to experience a little of that too. Offensive line blocks well, stays healthy. Receivers get some separation, make plays. You're going to see Mateer put up big, big numbers. You're going to see him make some amazing plays. So anything that happens this Saturday with the scrimmage, I don't think those guys should get too bent out of shape, because this is an experienced veteran defense. They've got a pride factor. I just told you that Venables has remade the defense in his image. Things are going to happen. The offense is going to make plays. The defense needs to just get themselves up, dust themselves off, pat the other team on the back, pat Mateer and those guys on the back. I am very eager to see if these wide receivers can stay healthy this month and throughout September, to see what their contributions are going to be and see how they help this quarterback stand out.
Yeah, if we're talking interceptions, it needs to not be John Mateer was confused by what he saw pre-snap versus what actually happened, and he threw straight to a dropping Kip Lewis. He Peyton Thorne this thing, right? You don't want to see. We know what that looks like, and that's what Jack started. We saw a lot of. We don't want. Oh my gosh, through the offensive staff, John Mateer was rolling out and he smacked the ball off his hip, and it's now tumbling toward Eli Drinkwitz on the Missouri sideline, and oh my gosh, he fell on it.
It's a scoop and
Disaster
score.
point. That
Yeah.
kind of stuff. If Cortland Guillory closes down and makes a really competitive play, stuff like that, because Jean Mateer is going to, it's not going to be what we saw out of Hawkins at times where he was overly safe, what we saw out of Arnold where he was scared to push it downfield. They're gonna push it downfield, and it sounds like by all accounts, Ben Arbuckle has been able to show off in the practice setting some plays where he simply is just getting guys the ball in easy spots where they can go and make a play. Something we saw basically nada last year, unless your name was Bauer Sharp trying to make it happen. Now you're getting the ball to Isaiah Satania behind the line of scrimmage as opposed to Bauer Sharp,
You
and you
hope.
get a
You
little bit
hope.
more of that.
Yeah. This team has a desperate need to be competitive in August, right? They've got to solve some position battles. They've got to have some young guys step up into some important roles. They've got to have some transfers take over at some positions. Okay, so August has absolutely got to be competitive. But after 2024, man, Brent Venables said it a couple of times this preseason. 30 years as a college football coach, he's never seen a season go sideways that far because of injuries, have that many injuries in one season. It's ridiculous. It's unprecedented. I've been doing this 40 years and I've never seen it. So I would think that Brent goes into the big scrimmage this Saturday just absolutely racked, pins and needles with anxiety about please don't let anybody get hurt. And if they do, please let it be at a position where there's plenty of depth and it's not serious and they can come back later and create some competition. There'll be some smaller scrimmages. I think you said later on this month, next weekend, next Saturday, there's supposed to be a situational scrimmage where they go over, down in distance and a lot of stuff like that. And then next Friday, what'd you say? Week 0, I think you told me before the show got going. Friday of week 0, they're going to have another scrimmage, but that's going to be for the scrubs, the walk-ons, the freshmen, the backup they're basically going to not play a whole lot this year. That they anticipate anyway.
I think Venables classified as those guys that need some more work or that need that extra work. I think he put a little bit more polite, but we know the drill. So
Ain't nothing wrong
it'll
with
be
being a scrub. I
yeah.
was a scrub. I was a scrub for
Listen,
3 years. The senior year, broke out, got on the field. It was great.
still am. I
That
am.
was my nickname, Scrub. They called me Scrub. They also called me Cubby when I was a freshman or a sophomore. So what are you going to do?
Well, you're a Yankee, not a Cubby. I don't know how that makes any sense. So that'll be interesting. John Mateer, he spoke on Monday, and we'll pair what John Mateer had to say, what Brent Venables had to say, because I think it kind of all goes together. Mateer, it's just kind of the constant updates of, okay, when we left him at the Crimson Combine, he had said, feel like they're ahead of schedule when it comes to installing that stuff, but they need to work their butts off over the summer to make that thing happen. Talked to John Mateer at SEC Media Day, and he's like, yeah, we were able to actually install some new wrinkles and things like that based off what we ran last year at Washington State. So not only were they able to install the offense, but able to kind of continue to innovate stuff like that. And then Mateer basically said it's felt like it's translated. There haven't been major hiccups early on at practice, and that they're still. He said basically every other day after practice, still the offense is getting together to go through some extra walkthrough stuff after camp. And Brent Venables, listen, if you've listened to Brent Venables this far into his career at Oklahoma, you'll know that it can always get better. So we know that. But Venables had talked about, he had said it is impressive how much they've been able to get installed and all that stuff. And that you can also tell that there's a synergy. And I think you're looking at whether it be, as Mateer was talking about, that him and center Troy Everett sit down and watch film so that Mateer knows even more what the offensive line needs and what Troy is seeing and what Troy's trying to relay and how can Mateer help Troy and all that stuff. So I think that's just the kind of thing that you get when you have a quarterback who, whether it's starting at the FCS level or at Alabama or at Oklahoma for multiple years, a quarterback that's done it before starting as opposed to a guy that is ascending to a starter for the first time and doing all this stuff. Mateer knows what he's looking at the defense. How can I help the offensive line, stuff like that. That's what you look for when you have a veteran quarterback coming in to try and be a leader of the offense.
Yeah, Mateer is on the Walter Camp list and the Maxwell Trophy list, and today he was on the Davey O'Brien quarterback list. Those are watch lists for national awards. There's some people in the SEC and there's some people nationwide who think that he's going to be a contender for those awards. Let's all assume this year that all those wide receivers stay healthy and all those offensive linemen stay healthy. Everybody knows what to do, and the offense is way better. He's going to be that guy. Okay, he's going to put up some huge numbers if given all those circumstances. What I like about what you just referenced about what Brent said about the offense, he said they're getting to some things in camp. It's obvious that they're getting to some things in camp this year in the playbook, right? Offensive wise on the play sheet, they're getting to some things. Brent made it sound like he's a little bit surprised that they're able to get to those things this early in camp. Now let's off of that, pat Mateer on the back and say a Hail Mary for the wide receivers and everything. But give credit to Arbuckle, right, for his ability to teach at a fast rate, right? Teach quickly and effectively, communicate, and give credit also to Mateer for jumping in and trying to be that conduit. Like, I know what he's talking about, guys. Here's how I'm gonna relay it to you. Those two together playing in that offense last year at Washington State have just been invaluable so far for Oklahoma's progress as an offense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve. A big piece of that's going to have to be the offensive line. Talked to Eddie Pierre-Louis on Wednesday. On Thursday, I rolled out a story about Eddie Pierre-Louis. You can hit it up, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. And it's kind of centered around the fact that going all the way back, like we said, Crimson Combine. Last guy I talked to was Troy Everett, saying basically the O-line's going to go as Eddie goes. That was kind of his paraphrase. And what he meant is the energy and physicality he brings, either you have to match it. So if you're a veteran, mentally just kind of going through the motions, you can't, because Eddie's going to start a camp fight. He didn't say that, but with his physicality, he's going to do that. If you're a young guy, you have to look to Eddie and go, that's the bar for aggression and physicality. The challenge for him is going to be, can he pair that with the technique to properly harness it? And certainly he feels like he's done a good job so far. And I've phrased this a bunch of different ways with Eddie when we do radio. It's like, if you asked me offensive line against Illinois State and the offensive line against LSU, the guy I'm most confident about being on both of those units, assuming he's healthy, is Eddie Pierre-Louis. And then Troy Everett's probably my number 2 pick right behind him, as far as the leadership that he brings, though, compete with Jake Michael, stuff like that. Tackle, other guard spot, if Eddie's at left guard or right guard, that all feels like a big, they're still working through everybody trying to solidify that. But I feel best about Eddie Pierre-Louis because I truly think that when Brent Venables said they loved him a year ago, I think that they did, but because of how his school is set up at Tampa Catholic, can't enroll early. So it's not like Eddie Pierre-Louis didn't try to, just the graduation, they don't do the enroll or early situation. Same thing with, was that the same spot as Lewis Carter maybe as well? Maybe not.
I think maybe so.
Maybe it was a Bowles kid who ended up going to Georgia. I digress. Moral of the story is that if Eddie Pierre-Louis had come in as an early enrollee a year ago, I think he probably wouldn't have stopped at the 4 games last year to maintain his red shirt, and think that they would have rotated him in there. And I see no reason to believe why Eddie Pierre-Louis would not be one of those guys, especially because it's a group that just, I know that there was so much moving and shaking, but at no point did anyone on that offensive line look aggressive other than Eddie Pierre-Louis against Maine.
I think Lewis Carter did come in early, I think.
Yeah, he might
that All-Star game I covered in Orlando. Anyway, I want to take the point that you made about the offensive line and spin it toward the wide receivers. Those guys have been really in the viewing sessions that we've had and in the post-practice interviews that we've gotten to talk to the players and the coaches. Those wide receivers have had a really good camp. Here's where OU fans go like this, right? Knock on wood, fingers crossed, rabbit's foot, and all that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, Isaiah Satania, you've seen him in those videos that we've posted. You've seen him rise up and make some plays. He comes out the next day or whatever, or even later that day, I guess, and gives an interview and gives off an air of confidence and competitiveness. And he's just, he's an impressive dude. And then Keontez Lewis, same thing. You see him make a bunch of plays, and hey, there he is showing up for interviews. It's like when someone does really well in practice, and I don't know the dynamic between Mike Howe, the publicist, and Brent Venables, but I would assume it's something along the lines of Mike sees the guy make plays in practice, goes up and asks Venables, hey, who do we want at practice today. Well, who'd you see? I saw this guy, this guy. Who? What do you think about that guy? And they come together and say, okay, yeah, these guys would be good for post practice interviews later in the week or next week or whatever. I'm seeing some guys who have made some in Keontez Lewis and Isaiah Satania, some guys who have made some big time plays in Division One football. So there's that. You love to see that. And here's my theory on them. Here's why we're seeing so many wide receivers exploding in the fall practice. It's because when they transferred in the spring or were freshmen in the spring, they're playing catch up. They're learning the offense. They're trying to figure it out. They're getting life in Norman, Oklahoma, you know, down pat. Now they've been here for a while. They know the playbook, or they've learned a good portion of the playbook. They're comfortable. They've got friends. They've got a house. Their mom has brought their dog in, so their life off campus is good, and they're having friends over for barbecue. They're more integrated into the life of a college football player in Norman, Oklahoma. That's a thing. When you're new and you don't know anybody and you're trying to learn the playbook as fast as you can, sometimes you don't get to stand out in spring, but fall shows up, training camp shows up, and you look a lot more relaxed. You're a lot more educated about what plays are being called and what the concepts are behind those plays. They've retained a lot of what they got in spring, and they're putting that knowledge into practice right now. They're also, Ryan, still talking, as you mentioned, still talking about Giovanni Gibson. We talked about him at the top, but they're still talking about, hey, he's on track. If we get him back this season, if he's able to contribute, here's a guy who's got a lot of physical talent. All he needs is to be able to get healthy and get in there and get on the field. I guess that's a good sign. The fact that they're still talking about him. I'm sure a lot of people are still gun shy from all the wide receiver talk last year that never panned out. But then you hear about a couple of freshmen, Elijah Thomas and Manny Choice, who have gotten plenty of meaningful reps this preseason, right? Lots of meaningful reps. And what have they done with it? They've taken advantage of those opportunities and made plays. They beat a DB, whether it's in a competitive catch or downfield or something like that. Those are freshmen. Those are true freshmen. And then you got a guy like Zion Kearney, who I said at the very beginning of camp was going to be a guy that has a lot of brings a lot to the position this year. True freshman last year, played in 11 games, only had, I think, 8 catches for the season. I think he had 5 of them in the bowl game, including the big touchdown. He's drawn rave reviews since before training camp started, from Arbuckle at the coaches' clinic, the coaches' luncheon that they had. I think Brent talked about him a little bit, maybe in Atlanta. His teammates have talked about him. So the wide receivers, again, we don't know, and we have to be cautious. We can't stick our neck out and say, definitely going to be this. But there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of promise there, I think.
Yeah, so Tanya makes big plays in practice regularly. He's the guy that you hear about when the offense has a big play.
Yep.
If you just go purely based off like the one-on-one portion we got to see on Monday, Keontez Lewis had not one but 2 catches in the corner of the end zone. The last one that Ben Arbuckle demanded was going to be called a touchdown as he sprinted over and was pointing to the grass and turned to the poor official. It's like, it's camp for the official too, and he's just like, there's no replay. Who cares? Let's throw the touchdown. Although I think it was Eddie that had a great angle from like the sideline, or maybe George, of his first catch, which was ruled incomplete, where he definitely got a toe in. So a little toe tap from Keontez, one from Elijah Thomas. So you'll see that. A guy, Keontez Lewis, we didn't just talk about in the spring, he was sidelined with the hamstring. Someone else who was a little nicked and bruised during the spring, Josiah Martin, easy to forget about him as well, coming in from Cal. The important thing, I think, is Satania played at Arkansas. Keontez Lewis, I know his big breakout came at Southern Illinois, but he had played at UCLA and 2 seasons at Wisconsin. Martin coming over from Cal. Whatever, I've heard less about Martin than those other guys, but at least those are guys that have seen it in practice, if nothing else, and all that, as far as what the speed, physicality, all that. And then Giovanni, Devon Jordan, we were asking him just about some of the guys that have made plays in the fall. And the last thing he's like, and oh, by the way, when JV comes back, he puts you into the ground with joy. And he got hurt blocking. That's something that Devon Jordan talked about, is that he is physical. He loves to throw a block, something that Jeff Lebby wide receivers didn't do much, because that's kind of a tenet of the Baylor offense, was that the receivers are worthless in the NFL because they don't run routes and they can't block. So I don't think that's going to be an Emmett Jones tenet when Giovanni Gibson is back healthy and in the mix. So we'll see there. Hey, let's flip over to the other side of the ball real quick. Got to talk to Miguel Chavis as well on Monday. Great to talk to Miguel. First off, Miguel Chavis has done a really nice job developing Ethan Downs. He's done a really nice job developing R. Mason Thomas. So clearly he can coach football. I don't know how sound of a decision maker he is, and I say that because of this. It's 10 million degrees. Sunday night it had dumped overnight in Norman, which meant the rugby fields, like not like the actual practice field, but all around it was kind of flooded a little bit, which made for a very humid day. What does Miguel Chavis decide to do after practice? Shower and change into like the heaviest pair of jeans and like a polo to come back out to the practice field and talk to us. So, I mean, Miguel Chavis, you do you, but also like shorts would have been fine, I think. But once he actually got into the swing of
He's
things,
also wearing his hair like super long, which is
yeah,
not conducive to Oklahoma heat and humidity.
yeah, his hair, he had just hopped out of the shower, it looked like. So I think he had put it in the hat, knowing that it was going to like frizz out type thing. So that I was okay with. It was the jeans that I was standing next to him going,
Yeah.
Coach, we're all shooting you from like chest up. Like it looked good, feel good, I guess, but also you look like you're really hot right now, and
Yeah.
I'm sweating because of it. But once we got into actual business, as opposed to that, we found out that Miguel Chavis wants Tom Green to get a raise over at 247 Sports. We found that out. But no, he had a lot of great stuff to say about R. Mason, about Taylor Wine, obviously, has been one of those stories at camp. And I got to ask him a little follow up about PJ, which I thought was really important because Miguel was talking about R. Mason Thomas just straight up was their best defensive end in camp 2 years ago. And that's when he got not one, but two different ankle injuries. Hard to play when you've got zero healthy ankles. Was kind of curious about, can PJ draw anything from that as a guy that also his sophomore season, he had played a lot as a freshman, and then he gets that freak ankle injury in basically a mock walkthrough that kind of disrupted his year. Then by the time he was 100% healthy, Ethan Downs had established himself as a guy that didn't need to come off the field ever. R. Mason was coming on. What did that look like? And that's something that Miguel was like, yes, but also you may put 5-star expectations on him, which is fine. The bar for all of the OU defensive ends is up here, and that it's like some guy. Basically, he was saying some guys you have to figure out who you talk to differently, especially the young guys. And he said that PJ's been doing well. Obviously, that was before he was in the tent on Wednesday, which we talked about. But certainly, I guess good news for OU fans waiting for the breakout, saying, "Hey, it's kind of now or never right now for PJ."
Yeah, and it's funny. I wrote a story early last week, I think, about three guys that, it's time for them to break out. He was certainly at the top of the list. You got a 5-star defensive end who's just kind of gotten, backup snaps, third string snaps in his first 2 years. You would like to see a true freshman with that kind of ability. He had his recruitment was really weird in that he was like 0 stars, no mention, nobody knew who he was, to all of a sudden they say, hey, this kid's pretty good, to all of a sudden it's, oh my God, that dude is unbelievable. He's a 5-star. So he shot up the charts faster than just about anyone. And I know, Chavis and Venables will say that doesn't matter. Jim Nagy, right, will say that doesn't matter. What matters is what we think about him. That's fair. That, you can do that. That's fine. But the expectations, external, internal, it doesn't matter. The expectations are there. And you'd like to see a kid that has had some injury problems, battled injury problems his first 2 seasons. You'd like to see him stay healthy, get a break, and see what the heck that guy can do, because he's a beast. He's a physical, and he's 270 now, I think he said. I know he's past 260. 261 was his summer, or no, at the end of spring, he was 261.
He said 265, 7'1" wingspan was
So that's okay. Holy cow. Yeah. So, and Chavis had a lot of loves talking about Taylor Wine. He said nobody watches as much film as him. Nobody's in the building as much as him. We talked about him here on the podcast last week, but all that stuff that we asked, right, is he a red herring for the other guys to kind of motivate them to step up? It doesn't sound like it. Sounds like Taylor Wine is having that good of a camp, and he's his progress and his improvements have been legit. So yeah, it's fun to hear what the position coaches have to say about these guys after they spend so much time with them. We get maybe 1 or 2 interviews with these guys per year, so it's cool to see what Miguel Chavis had to say about his boys.
And
Edgeman.
Yeah, the edgeman. I hope everyone knows too. When I was asking about Taylor Line, that was a devil's advocate situation. I was not saying I'm because it like you said. I think where you see the difference is when it's not just Brent Venables that talks about him, but it's Chavis. It was Todd Bates. It's been R. Mason Thomas unprompted at SEC Media Day. Like that. That usually is the dividing line between not, but
Right.
we're all looking for content on August 1st. Anyway,
We also talked
uh,
about Marvin Jones. Amazing.
yes,
Amazing.
Marvin Jones, who got to talk to Marvin on Wednesday, and something that you kind of referenced earlier, which made me think about Marvin Jones. You were talking about when you get to a spot, like learning everything, stuff like that. How easy is it to learn the playbook, not learn the playbook? Marvin Jones is a transfer, but it's his second time transferring. So I think the process of moving was something that is pretty easy for him. And Marvin Jones, I thought the thing that stood out to me about him was Marvin was quick to be like, yeah, this feels like home. Everyone's so welcoming. I don't think it's been like a super tough adjustment period for Marvin Jones Jr., which
Yeah.
is good. He's a guy that was a top 20-ish caliber recruit. He's never produced up to that point, but he's also not been unproductive, if that makes sense. He's been a fine rotational piece at Georgia, a fine rotational piece at Florida State. I don't know if this is a hey, is the light bulb going to come on to be the ultra 5-star guy? But I think what I think of is at worst maybe a more athletic version of a Rondell Bothroyd who came in, did a good job, wasn't messing up a ton. And if other guys are playing over Marvin Jones Jr. and it's not because he was hurt, I think that's like good news for the young guy development. And if you see a lot of R. Mason Thomas and Marvin Jones Jr., I don't think you're going to be like terribly concerned about what is happening at the other end opposite of R. Mason, though I think that judging by the hype train that is almost off the tracks with Taylor Line and Danny Okoye, if you don't see a ton of Taylor Line and Danny Okoye instead of Marvin Jones, I don't think it's like a major negative. It just shows like the floor is really high with Marvin Jones Jr. I just don't know at this point in his career what the ceiling is outside of you're going to say he's a former 5-star, but he's never quite produced like a 5-star.
Yeah. And I want to get to also, Ryan, one other player that Brent Venables talked about, Reggie Powers. Holy cow, what he had to say about Reggie. And then if you go in, you listen to what Brent said, and you go in and you watch Reggie's interview, it makes it even more impressive for me. Brent used the words passion and energy and intensity and playmaking. Basically, he said at some point he did the Bob Stoops thing where he sticks his head in the film room, and says, "Guys, that's a player. Let's get him on the field more." He said he told his defensive coaches to find a way to get that dude on the field. And then you go back and watch his interviews. He looks mature. He looks confident. He looks serious. He said he's really settling into the defense. It's year 2 for him now, settling into the defense and college life. He's a different player now than he was this time last year. Here, I was going to ask you, see if you got any parallels or any comps to any recent players, defensive players who are just, they go to the interview and they're not like jokey. You're trying to engage them and they're not jokey. They're not taking your bait. They're real serious. They give you thoughtful answers, but they're always straightforward and looking you right in the eye. You know what I mean? They don't waste a whole lot of time and energy goofing around. And that's what he reminds me of.
Yeah, Grayson Halton is that way. Grayson is very like straight to the point. I'll answer what you ask of me. I'll think about it for a little bit. Occasionally you can get him to smile and talk about something else, but Grayson for me is probably that guy. You'd have to give me a minute to think about the past couple of years just because they all kind of run together. But Dejon Terry was like that in a way, like, and you could tell that Dejon was someone that later in his career was like, yeah, I'm here to. I understand my clock's running out between now and entering the NFL draft, stuff like that. But yeah, Brent Venables basically did the like whatever you guys see out here when we go into team situations. Reggie Powers is making plays, and it's hard. In some ways, it's like it's hard to quantify that, and it's just as simple as who is always around the football. And it reminds me of Kip Lewis to an extent. The way that he talked about Kip Lewis, Brent Venables did at times, where it's like he's just always around the football. And so what does that look like? Whether that be not just at Cheetah, but maybe that other safety spot alongside Robert Spears Jennings, which I think could be interesting. That would give you a little bit more uh, sturdiness, a little bit more size as far as coming down and tackling SEC backs back there. And then whether it be, we know that Peyton Bowen, if he doesn't have turf toe that's killing him all year, has a nose for the football. Jaden Hardy is someone that I always thought just kind of found his way around the football as a good fear for the game. Jaden Hardy, even in the if you're watching our highlights from Wednesday, the little toe tap catch that Jaron Kanik had off of a tip, I believe that was Hardy that tipped that ball, if I remember correctly. It's really hot though. My brain might just be going haywire. But yeah, Reggie Powers is a guy that it sounds like Brent Venables could not contain himself. He mentioned Reggie Powers and Michael Boganowski kind of in that same way. And I think that Brent Venables likes those guys because I think they're legitimate psychopaths. I think that Michael Boganowski, the way
In
that
a
he
good way.
like wants Boganow, and I mean that obviously in like the best way, like as far as a football player go. I think that Boganowski would like to break someone, and if Boganowski doesn't like have some sort of, he's my number one draft pick for Oklahoma player that gets his face mask caught on another player's helmet because they collided like with so much force that they're just like stuck together and someone has to take it off and do all that. So I think Boganowski's the number one draft pick. So I'll be interested to see what Reggie Powers can do. And again, if that's a cheetah between Kendall Daniels, who I think they're pretty excited about picking things up, and Reggie Powers, that gives you license to move Kendall Dolby back to the outside if you need to. And I've never been super worried about Dolby as a tackler. He's one of those guys, kind of like Trey Brown was, that he can go in, grab your ankle, and you're just not getting away and let everybody else rally to the football. But you're even less worried about that if Kendall Dolby's playing on the outside as opposed to having a Reggie Powers, having a Kendall Daniels over there. So it'll be interesting. And then well, let's close with this. Talking to Cortland Guillory is an absolute joy, and I hope that he plays a lot because I would like to continue to talk to Cortland. He started off his interview by sheepishly asking the great Eddie Radosevich, "Do you need me to like hold your microphone?" And Eddie's like, "No, we hold it. You're good, man." He's like, "Sorry, I don't do a lot of these." And Eddie's like, we hold it. It's good. Like we appreciate it, but we got this.
Is this
A
something
guy
that they're
that
teaching at the student and coaches at OU now? Remember in the softball season, covered a game at TU at Tulsa, and Patty Gasso was like, "Can I hold your microphone?" I'm like, "If you want, yeah, sure."
if it makes you feel more comfortable. Sometimes
Sure.
I wonder if they it's like when we do our post game wraps, if I don't have the final box score, the packet, the
Yeah.
game book, you can just see I'm uncomfortable the whole time. She's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I hate it. I don't want to like just pocket it. It's a Will Ferrell moment, like, hello. And so I like the game. Maybe we just need to hand Reggie or hand Cortland a game book or something so he can just have that. But I thought he was fascinating because in the spring, his name kept coming up as a guy that, hey, they're excited about him. So we asked him about his spring, and he's like, I actually wasn't happy with my spring at all. I don't think I accomplished what I needed to, which I was like, do you know how much your teammates talked about you during the spring? And then it was kind of asking him, okay, he's been a guy that has said freshman All-American. I want to do the Eli Bowen and he talked about, yeah, Eli lays out what he did, but also that part of what he loves about Jay Valai is that he's so specific on if you do this, this, and this, you will earn playing time. And he was talking about that. And then I just asked him, like, hey man, uh, like Robert Spears Jennings talked about your confidence, and Brent Venables has talked about your confidence. Like, where does that come from? He had the best answer I thought ever, which was basically he looked at me, he's like, I'm a cornerback. What do you mean? If you're not confident, you're playing the wrong spot. To which I was like, that's the best answer you could have given. I want my corners and my wide receivers to be absolute prima donnas. That is what you want. You want that Coach Prime energy out there at corner and at wide receiver because he's like, yeah, if you're not confident, you shouldn't be on that island and put me on that island. And I absolutely love that about Cortland Guillory.
Yeah, he's definitely confident, and I think you see that as well in a lot of players. What I was saying about Reggie Powers is a good example of that. The learning curve for a freshman is so big and so pronounced, and when they can come in like Eli did last year, third string when the season started, by the time they played Texas, he's in the starting lineup. That's remarkable. And if it happens fast like that, if the game it progresses fast, I should say, and the game slows down for you, you're a true freshman, you've got the chance to have a special career. And he's one of those guys. I think if you look at this freshman class, you can probably just from spring practice and the spring game, Crimson Combine, whatever you want to call it, and what we've seen so far in practice, I think you can identify early on who some of those guys are, freshman wise, that can break out this season and really contribute. I mean, it's fun to speculate, but it's also fun to go back and look a year later and say, did I pick that guy or did I pick that guy? And hey, some of them you're spot on because of things like this. Because you talked to Cortland Guillory in August, and his interview stands out to you, and so he projects this confidence that he also plays with on the field.
Yeah, and the things he talked about, actually getting into the nitty gritty. He played a ton of man in high school and all that stuff. So it was really for him about the learning curve as far as everything he needed to do in zone coverage, which I know that Jay Valai was on him because Jay Valai's on everybody always. By the way, I know that DeMarco was the one running through drills. I would not want to be standing across from Emmett Jones, Jay Valai, or DeMarco Murray. They swallow up like I swear that Jay Valai has to be wearing like an extra large and like the Under Armour base layer, whatever, and he makes it look like a schmedium, and that's because Jay Valai is just like walking around. He looks like a ripped thumb, and again, mean that in the best way as someone who has a large beer belly. Neither here nor there.
Don't undersell Chavis too. I think he could roll out there. Give him a couple of weeks to get into shape. I think he could roll out there and make a dent in your starting or lineup, or maybe your top two rotation.
The issue is with Emmett Jones and Jay Valai and DeMarco, they're either in joggers or like the shorts with the tights underneath that you can just tell everything is like the calves on Emmett Jones are insane. Chavis is always wearing baggy jeans, so I can't ever tell if he's ready to go or not, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, we know that Jay Valai will be on all the corners. That is what he do, and they've had some good development there at corner. All right, one last bit of business before we dip out. On Monday, coaches poll came out, and you had to scroll and scroll and scroll again. And the Sooners were the number one team receiving votes. The first time since '99 they were out of the preseason coaches poll. The AP poll comes out on Monday. I don't have a lot of interest, John, in really dissecting who was where and who was overvalued, who's undervalued, because I think with the portal, it's harder than ever to have some preseason expectations. But I will leave you with this, I guess, if you would like it. This is Brett McMurphy. He popped this out there in preparation for the AP poll coming out on Monday. In 2024, Brett McMurphy said 13 of the 25 teams in the final AP poll began the year unranked. So yeah. 13 of the 25 started unranked, ended from bottom to top. 25 Colorado, 24 Memphis, 23 UNLV, 21 Army, 20 Syracuse, 19 South Carolina, 16 Illinois, 15 Iowa State, 13 BYU, 12 SMU, 10 Indiana, 8 Boise State, 7 Arizona State. That's, again, started unranked, finished ranked. The top 4 of that group obviously made the CFP, the College Football Playoff. Here's the good news. If you're an Oklahoma fan and you subscribe to Flying Under the Radar is a good thing. Oklahoma has the schedule to where they can fly under the radar all they want, and as long as you handle business, you're not going to be overly concerned about the committee not valuing this win or that win. The Sooners have the schedule to make it to the CFP if they have a strong season. A lot of ifs, a lot of ands, a lot of buts. I'm not telling you that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying I would not be overly stressed about their placement amongst the coaches, and we know the coaches are not actually ranking things, and the AP poll that's going to come out on Monday.
Yeah, and the schedule, as we look at it right now, Illinois State, Michigan, Temple, and Kent State in the non-conference. Then you got Auburn, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU in conference play. I honestly think, and I've been secretly thinking this all season, I think it looks a lot tougher right now than it's going to look in November or December. I think Oklahoma has it. Okay, let's just assume they don't lose 11 players who would at some point be starting games this year like they did last year. Let's just assume 11 guys don't go down to season-ending injury or major injury at some point. I think they're going to win some games. I think they're going to show the doubters and the haters, so to speak, right? I think it's going to be, 8 wins, 9 wins, I think is possibly on the table. Get some breaks go your way. Maybe you have 10 wins. That's great. The flip side is the schedule absolutely could shake out to be as tough as it looks. And if it does, and if OU does have injury problems, it's college football after all, you could absolutely be looking at a 5-win or a 6-win season. And then the number 26 ranking to start the season in the preseason suddenly looks idiotic because you have a team that's 6-6 or 5-7 or whatever. It's even 7-5, and you almost ranked them to start the season. Now, here's the thing with the playoff committee. The playoff committee consists of 13, 12 plus an executive director. 13 what? Human,
Humans.
human beings, people who have received information and their actions are thus influenced by that information. In other words, they get fed 3 months of number 21 ranked OU, number 19 ranked OU, number 16 ranked OU, number 11 ranked OU, right? Climbing in the polls. And then it's time for the College Football Playoff Selection Committee to send out their first rankings, right? And who are they going to base those on? They're going to base those on 3 months of information that sees somebody climbing from 26 up into the polls. That's going to be great. Or they're going to see they're going to have information from somebody who's in the 15s or the 12s or the 10s who lost a couple of games and fell out. They're going to be influenced by that because that number that goes in front when, the little scroll goes across your ESPN screen, right? It always has that number in front of your name. They're human beings. They're going to be influenced by those numbers. It just is. I know it doesn't matter. I know the preseason polls are worthless, but guess what? They end up influencing the next week and the next week and the next week until pretty soon it's October or early November, and you're looking at the CFP rankings going, this looks just like the AP poll that came out last week.
Poll inertia. It is a thing. Although it means less and less when you have 12 teams as opposed to 2, as you did in the BCS. If you care, though, Oklahoma's schedule falls as such in the coaches poll. Texas is number 1. Alabama's 8. LSU is 9. South Carolina is 13. Michigan is 14. Ole Miss is 15. Tennessee is 18. And as we said, the mighty Redbirds of Illinois State come in at number 6.
Missouri's at number 27.
Yeah, Missouri's at 27. By the way, just an FYI, these coaches are going to look really dumb. I'm here to tell you, Georgia Tech is making the ACC championship game. If Haynes King plays 12 games, Georgia Tech is making the ACC championship game. Their schedule, I don't know if you've looked at it, Hoove, is soft. It is Clemson in week 3. Their ACC schedule is soft. They obviously finished with Georgia, but Clemson in week 3, and then they should win all those other games as long as Haynes King does not get hurt, which was a big issue. And they beat Miami without Haynes King being able to throw forward passes a year ago. So should be good there. This is an unfair question to throw at you, so I'm not going to make you answer it because this would require a lot of looking at other team schedules. Oklahoma is one of those teams that I think they might have like the widest spread of possibilities when it comes to this season. Like if the offensive line falls into place and Ben Arbuckle is what Ben Arbuckle has been advertised, and John Mateer lives up to some of this preseason hype, and that story that I wrote about guys making the transition from starting elsewhere into the SEC, and if you are a good quarterback, there's no reason why your numbers can't be similar. Pavia a year ago went from the New Mexico State level all the way up to Vanderbilt and only dropped 1 percentage point in completion percentage, a couple yards fewer per carry, but more touchdown stuff like that. I mean, there's a pathway. Like if Tennessee can't figure out a quarterback, if Missouri's not very good, if Ole Miss takes a huge step back, if South Carolina can't truly replace a lot of that defensive line, stuff like that, there's a really good pathway, and then everyone could be just as good as advertised. Oklahoma could have O-line issues and injuries, and there's a really bad path. It's kind of insane how we go into this thing, and the spread for possibilities, I think, is legitimately within like maybe 6 games for Oklahoma, like what the bottom end of the top end is, which is nuts.
I agree. I was going to say 5 games, a five win regular season or a 10-win regular season. I think Oklahoma is somewhere in that mix, and that's insane to say.
Just it should make this fall pretty fun. We're 24, 23 days away. Math is hard. Don't worry about it. Not like the season kicks off on my sister's birthday or anything, which, by the way, congratulations to my sister who passed all of her exams. She is a full-fledged PT. If you're in Chickasha, go to PT Central, and she will get you feeling right. Shout out to the superstar of the family, the great Keely Chapman. Have we missed anything else? We were all over the place. Jake Krull announcing his commitment on Tuesday. Decided between Oklahoma, Texas, Ole Miss. If you want to read all about Oklahoma's 2027 offensive line commit that announced his commitment during the podcast, be sure to head to Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Our guy Carson is motoring through that right now as we speak. If you want to hear about Eddie Pierre-Louis or Marvin Jones Jr.,
Yep.
those stories are up. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com right now. And
In
that's
addition to
your
Cruel,
one-stop shop.
and sorry, in addition to Cruel, we're keeping an eye on Davian Gross.
Yes, that there's not a day announced as far as I
Right.
know, but it's imminent. So we're just head on a swivel, keep your ear to the ground. And as soon as we know anything, you'll know what we know. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Just bookmark that bad boy. We ask for no payments ever. We just ask that you read and enjoy all of our coverage of the Oklahoma Sooners. If you're on the YouTube's John Hoover Media, that's where you can find all of our videos, all the player interviews, podcasts, highlights that we get, all that fun stuff. You know the drill. Once we get in season, we'll be posting some wrap-ups of press conferences, the post-game wraps, all that fun stuff will come to Hoover's YouTube page at John Hoover Media or the website Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Unless you hear otherwise, we'll be back next Wednesday. If there's media next Wednesday, I will tweet it out at Sooners on SI. Follow us, or I'll exit out. Whatever. Follow us, and you will know if there's media on Wednesday, we'll do it on Thursday. If not, we'll be back on Wednesday. If you're like, man, that's a lot of website stuff. Where can I just one place, I'll turn notifications on, make that thing happen. Just follow us on the website formerly known as Twitter at Sooners on SI, at John E. Hoover _ Ryan Chapman, and at Carson D. Field. That's all the damage we can do this week, though. We will be back next week with a wrap up, I guess, of everything we were able to source out from the scrimmage on Saturday. Sure, we'll talk to another batch of Sooners about how fall camp is going on. And don't you worry, we're not doing our world famous, always 100% accurate prediction show next week because that comes during week 0. But it's out there, baby. We're getting close. We're getting close to finding out all the wrong answers to the test. It may be the most worthless thing we do, but it's always fun to check in on at the end of every season. All right, that'll do it. For John, I'm Ryan. For Carson, who is trekking back and forth. Carson, don't get car sick right in the car, my friend. I can't handle that always. Until next week, we'll talk to you.